Jordan, how are you, brother?
Good to see you, Shamin.
Good to
Very
see
well.
you.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, something like 5 years since we've been together in the flesh,
Mm-hmm.
around that time.
The last time I saw you was in the top of a mountain in the middle of nature in Toulouse, France, in Vision Quest.
Yeah. An iconic last impression to have of somebody else, right?
Yeah, that was
coming out of the
a
woods.
really profound journey. 4 days, 4 nights. So we are. So Jordan, you are part of our Samurata.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct.
You are a man's embodiment, lifestyle, relationship coach, a world traveler, a teacher, a guide, someone who's passionate about beauty,
Mm-hmm.
intimacy, passion, legacy. So there's so many, you have written about so many different topics. Tell me a little bit about your journey.
Thanks for the introduction. You say it much more coherently, the way you describe me, than the way I can describe myself when I meet somebody in a party or something like that. Tell you about my journey.
Mhm.
That's the question.
You're from, what part of the UK are you from?
From Oxford or Oxfordshire in the
Okay.
south of England. Yeah.
Got it. Mhm.
Grew up in a very, how do you call it, nondescript and uneventful market town in England.
Mhm.
Not so much going on. You kind of outgrow it by the time you get to about 17 or 18, right? So either you get into trouble or you find a way out to leave. I went to university, and after that, travel. I took a degree in philosophy and studied a lot of psychology with that. And I came and I looked at the world and I saw absolutely no career prospects that had any kind of relevance to my interests or what I could stand doing, right? So my kind of solution to the what am I going to do with my life question was to go traveling. And a friend of mine said to me, the longer you spend traveling, meeting new people, going to new places, seeing alternative ways that a person can live their life, you're ultimately going to meet people who show you the way, who show you an avenue to get there. So I left with no real expectations, no real clue as to what I would end up doing with myself. But I trusted that if I would continue to explore and venture, that I might find something that aligned with my curiosity and my interest.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think we all have that moment in our lives where what's next? Like, what am I doing? Who am I? And for me, the question really was focused. I became more aware of it in my mid-20s. And yeah, I also began my traveling journey as well. And tell me about a bit more about what you do right now. What's the core of your work?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a moment of interest in flux in my career. I've just wrapped up a 2-day weekend here in New York, and we had a beautiful group of men. And we met just down the road here, actually a couple of blocks away from where we're filming now. And so my deepest background, other than my education, philosophy, psychology, is in coaching, right? So personal coaching involving bits and pieces here and there of shadow work, and also the exploration of spiritual states, depth of presence, as we call it. And so we met and we gathered. And what I'm really interested in helping men find is, first of all, to catch glimpses of beauty. You already put that word on the table. A lot of us never really woke up or cultivated a really wonder-filled relationship to that which is beautiful in women, in our intimate relationships, in ourselves, in the natural world, in the urban world, in the arts, in culture. We rush about our days and often don't contemplate what is beautiful. And some of us have the good fortune to be hit, right? I take you as somebody who has been kind of hit or pierced by beauty, such that the beauty has had you slow down and kind of enter some state of rapture. And I think that enters us in a really, really deep level. I had moments growing up with music and with cinema that just pierced me and inspired a great depth of wonder within me. And then in my relationship to women too, it took me actually a number of years to be prepared and open for this to happen, but to fall in love and then to receive love in return, so that when you fall in, when I was younger, I'd fall in love with a woman, but really it was a big mind story or a projection. I'd see her as somebody I wanted and then make up a big story and hope to make it happen. But as the years went on and I slowly matured, love became something that happened mutually. And then to see and feel a woman open as I opened myself, and we would meet in that sense of transparency, that intimacy, that is life changing. Like, struggle for words, but it's life changing. And so how can I have that is a question that a lot of men ask me. How can I open myself so that I find life inspiring and energizing again? How can I find that such that my relationships are nourishing? And is it possible even to find that through my work? And so I certainly grew up with a belief set that work was drudgery. That's where I've come from, hundreds of years of living in an industrial kind of society. Work was drudgery. Is there a possibility for me to find a kind of work that is aesthetically inspiring or soul inspiring? So these are the questions that we're exploring. And in particular, once you have known beauty, just a little bit, once you have known that beauty, and once you've decided that you cannot settle by selling yourself out to some gig that makes you feel lifeless and grey, this is a big, courageous step with the way that inflation and the cost of living is going, to look at the world and say, I'm not going to chase money out of fear, but I'm going to stick with doing the things that energize me and that I'm passionate about. I have to do this. How do I do this? How do I find the courage to do this? It takes kind of a spiritual courage, but also a knack for calming your own inner critic, your own sense of psychological scarcity. Is this going to work? I doubt myself. What's this actually going to turn into? It requires a knack for calming yourself down on the inside and trusting in life, trusting in your path, trusting that if you commit yourself to doing every day the things that you absolutely love, that in turn is going to shape you into being who you're here to become. So this is the 5-minute download where we went over the weekend, which is emblematic of the work that I've been doing over the last year or so. And I think, to bottom line it's like, if you're the kind of man or woman that's known beauty, true beauty, you have this sensitivity, then you've got to look out at the world and think, oh my God, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of people who don't get this. I want to pass on the essence of what I've seen onto others, the next generation. I want to participate somehow in a more beautiful reality world.
Well said, bro. Well said. Now the question in my mind is that there's always an instance in someone's life that they find or they perceive or they come across beauty by themselves through something, nature, through ecstasy, through maybe plant medicine, through a teacher, or through the depths of suffering. But the question is, in my mind, like, what are the circumstances that we need, like the person in their early years and throughout their life, how do they open up to it? There has to be a certain opening within to receive that guidance. So what do you think are the hindrances in a person's life that blocks them from receiving that beauty, the gift, and the calling?
I think we're structured socially to have people not go there. And I don't remember, actually I had some good teachers at school actually who really fought for us to see beauty in storytelling, beauty in literature, beauty in art. but there are not many people and not many instances that do that, right? And it's very hard to get a busload of 10-year-old children. And we're going to go to Rome on a school trip. You're going to see this ancient museum, and you're going to stand there, you know, underneath these great paintings, and you're going to be awed. Like, the kids are all, I don't know what we were doing, chewing gum, kicking the girls, making up songs, sitting on the bus, kicking stones around the plaza. You add another 2 or 3 years to it, trying to get drunk somehow. It's difficult. We kind of want to ignore what we're taught and rebel against our parents, but at the same time we want to go out and seek some kind of, in the midst of getting drunk for the first time, we hope to find a sense of beauty in that ourselves. So it's in a sense like great culture is on a plate and we seek it somewhere else. So I think it's a question of the ego, but culturally it's the system we're in, money, the chasing of success, the belief that you have to be a particular person and then you can maybe retire and follow the things that you like. I think that creates a big wall. The sense that I have to be somewhere else with a certain amount of accumulated status, possessions, money. I think that's one of the biggest walls. But I think it's a spiritual or religious kind of play in a way. You grow up and you have this ego, which is kind of turning your face from God. And then at some point along the journey, it's like, oh no, I wish I could remember how to turn my face towards the sublime again. You know, independent of what religion you come from, I think that the psyche is built to miss that. So there's a lot of psychological inquiry. And a person can train that for themselves. Like, it's very possible. One of the modalities I've been working with in the legacy course is the yoga of beauty. And this has come to me, I found it very deep in some of my explorations. This is from the 10th, 11th century from Kashmir. And they had a yoga of aesthetics where you could use painting or play, like the 3-act play, poetry, and these great, huge images and symbols and paintings that were created. You could use these as tools for meditation. So you might have, like, look at this yantra or meditate on this statue. That's one way of participating in yoga, right? But you could also do it on a painting or a play. So there's a technology for ripening the ego and the psyche to be overawed again by beauty. But failing that, you just get grace. You know, you were lost for a number of years, but then you heard one song on the radio. And you're walking through CVS at like 10 o'clock at night, and then all of a sudden you hear something, or you watch a movie and it catches you by surprise. And then I don't know if you've had this experience, but certainly I felt lost in moments of my life. I watch a certain movie and it gives me a symbol or a feeling, and I'm in a stupor for a few days trying to figure it all out. And it starts working a little bit with the unconscious. My mind doesn't quite know what to make of it, but my unconscious is definitely something happened there. And I process that. I try and figure out, what did that mean? Why am I resonating with this film so much? It came from another country that I'd never explored before. All of a sudden I want to go there. That opens up so much, right? Openness to another culture, stays abroad, somehow chasing this aesthetic to try and figure out what it means. I don't know if I'm going off track with your question here, but these are some thoughts.
No. I think every track we go just opens up a new dimension of thought. And also I think on the base of it, you sort of, by structure, you mean the conditioning, right, that society puts on us. The media, families, or wherever you go, your teachers, your whoever you look up to as a young child. Like for me, it was, I grew up in a conservative society, and certain actions or openness came with a sense of guilt that sort of got buried in my subconscious. And for some people it could be the lack of a father figure, or a figure that did not display certain qualities, and you sort of soak in all of them, and then they throw you out in the world and you don't have any teacher, and then you run into some issues, and then if you're lucky, you could find a brotherhood, a teacher, a mentor, a group. And I think for me, so I took part in the 6-month advanced program in, I think it was 2017 or 18, something like that. And we covered topics like curiosity, beauty, deeper layers of connection, embodiment, and then the whole program culminated into the forests of the Pyrenees.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of my tonic to the suffering, sort of that opened up new corners of thought. And I remember you guiding us through some really cool embodiment exercises, and coming back to the sensation of beauty, right? Through our life, we can feel the beauty unconsciously. For some people, it becomes a natural embodiment, but it's a feeling in the body at the end of the day. It's like how you process it, throughout your body. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, I'd like to put the question back onto you. Like, when you behold something that is truly beautiful in the way that comes across to you, how do you feel that through the body?
For me, I think it starts with a sensation in on my chest, sort of like a slight, mellow, colorful feeling. And then maybe it could, move around through my body. A sense of aliveness, a sense of relaxation, a sense of openness to the world. Yeah. But
That's good going. You've clearly got a sense of practice and mindfulness in the midst of that. So James Joyce talked about aesthetic arrest. Like, a work of art is actually a work of art because in many of those that behold the work of art, they enter into a state of aesthetic arrest, which is you look at this thing and actually all the body's major functions go into a stasis, and that holds you actually in stillness. So regular life is about movement, but a moment of meditation usually is a moment of stillness where everything stops, right? Especially the mind. So you behold the beautiful thing and boom, the mind stops. Often the breathing stops, like in a rest. You have this and you stop and you wonder. Most people lose all contact actually with their bodies in that moment and their mind. It's like, and they have this moment of aesthetic arrest. It's incredible, beguiling, but often unprocessable. So if you can look at something or somebody who's beautiful and continue breathing in the way that you just said, right? Wow, I actually feel where this beauty guides me to feel sensation in my body, and I can continue to breathe. I'm arrested of sorts, but I'm not completely arrested. Then you can actually be with that, embody that, slow that down, have that become part of you in some way. And I mean, the classic example is of a man who sees a beautiful woman that he would like to talk to, a true beauty, right? A man, whatever her physical beauty, he looks at her, she hits me. Well, what happens with a lot of men? We enter into a state of aesthetic arrest. But that's not so handy when it comes to going over and saying hello, right? Because you lose touch with all your body's functions, and ideally you want to be able to participate with beauty as well. Okay, wow, unbelievable beauty, and I can continue to breathe, and I can continue to feel my body and move and go over and say hello. I can dance in a way with this beauty, do something here, interact with this beauty. So that sense of aesthetic arrest, one of the next steps is like, can you breathe with that and participate with that as well?
Well said. Yeah, that's what used to happen to me many years ago was just you mentioned breathing is, and sometimes I observe that too, when you are in contact with this beauty, but then you are not accustomed or not experienced or not trained, there's a sense of stuckness. You stop breathing, and then your body just sort of like closes down, because the mind comes into play with all things of thought, of survival, that dates back to thousands and thousands of years of our, reptilian instinct. But you don't see it in nature, right? Nature is much more wilder. I came across this documentary of this species of frog called Tungara in Panama, and to attract mate, they have to make two specific sounds. One is just to get their attention. The other one is to sort of like attract them. But at the same time, the sound that they make causes a ripple in the water, and that at the same time, there are bats flying over, and then they perceives like through their echolocation the ripples. So it puts them in a vulnerable state too of getting, that's the predator prey relationship.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you are in the midst of attracting a mate, at the same time not getting, eaten up by the bat. It's
Yeah.
and I think we could even same, right, the way we interact with the other species, the feminine. You feel the sensation of society judging us, the other people judging us, right? And then we hold grudges, we don't take action, we sort of get bitter, and then we still stay in that same state, not able to grow to our next level. Yeah.
Yeah, your example from nature had me think about the nightclub owner, right? So the man is putting on all his best things in his cologne, going to the nightclub, hoping that he's going to get one of the women, but the music's so loud and everything is pitched against him. At the end of the night, it's like the nightclub owner is just rinsing all his money out of his pocket, right? Because he feels more and more insecure. So he goes out, he wants to be the predator, but someone's actually catching him, right? Someone asked me the other day, do you go and meet women in nightclubs? I'm like, no, they're completely pitched to exploit, I think, weaknesses in the system. But sorry, I don't want to divert. there was a question or a point in what
I mean, it could go either. So yeah, my what I wanted to bring is just nature is wild, dangerous. It's all about survival, evolution, and humans, we live in this comfort structured zone dictated by certain people, the society, and it becomes a challenge for since we are both involved in men's work. The masculine tends to have a certain burden of providing protection, keeping the world at bay, going to war, things like that. At the same time, we have to sort of, create our next generation, like your legacy. So it's like we are embroiled in this huge responsibility, right? And I feel having a brotherhood that commits to growth, each other, to be seen, to be felt, to be acknowledged. There's a lot of men generally does not know the sensation of feeling acknowledged by other men, or even the world.
Yeah.
And I found that in great men's group, just the act of listening gives us a lot of strength, and the whole the work that we have done together, in the program, it was all group work. I'm sharing something deep, and you have 10 to 12 other people listening, actively listening and soaking it in and sharing their experience. And I think that is one of the really great powerful tool to initiate you in that journey.
Yeah. Not a lot of men are very aware about the power of their own attention and their awareness. So just by being aware and then putting your attention on something, anything, you're holding one of the most powerful currencies in the world. We tend to think it's, we don't see the value in it, or we think it's an infinite resource, which it's not, right? So we fritter it away by scrolling through phones or wasting it, as just really devaluing it. And then men ask themselves the question, what have I got to bring to the table in my career or in my relationship to women, especially a single man? What have I got to bring? She's really beautiful, she looks like that. And me, what have I got? Well, you've got attention. And this is something that everyone craves. Women, men, children, for sure. The elderly, older generations that I think have don't receive so much. You can choose how you spend every second of your attention during the day, and that's a gift. So coming back to your point about the men's group, I've always been energized by being in groups of about 10, 12 or so people. Bigger than that, you kind of lose some kind of beauty in the dynamic, and small when it gets down to like one person, that can be powerful work. But there's something about 10, 12 people in a room, you magnify all that attention, right, of every individual person there, and you place it on someone as they speaks. It's a highly concentrated presence. So whatever it is that you want to speak into that concentrated presence, whatever part of you wish to be seen, or whatever part of you that you wish to hide, but you cannot hide anymore because the presence and the awareness is so great, people will see through your masks and your artifice. You get discovered for who you really are. You get discovered, you get seen. And there's something very cool about being in a men's group with this quality of attention and awareness. It's it's electrifying. Actually, because if people are smart and they're in the moment, they're attuned, they can see everything. You come in and you're naked. And that's a big reason why many men will never go to a group like this. Because they're like, wow, if I step in here and really share who I am and start telling my story, I'll be exposed. But it's also that wonderful experience where men who come into a very high caliber, but also very loving, safe group, they can come in and within 5 minutes, they're like, wow, I just thought I was going to share a bit of my story, and boom, emotion comes out, right? Tears, grief, longing, maybe sometimes anger, all comes out into an accepting space, and that can be a very healing experience as well. So bringing it all together, because I realize I'm saying a lot, the power of our attention as a group can be so transformative, but the power of our attention individually, if I'm a filmmaker, and that's something I would like to be at one point, I'd like to make a film, I would kind of like that the expression of my soul up there on the big screen is seen by people. So every audience member who comes and sits in the seat and watches my movie for an hour and a half, I'm very grateful for that, because it means whatever I want to express is disseminated into the world consciousness. Every audience member is valuable. If I think about it like that, it's not an ass on a seat or more kind of opening weekend revenue. It's everyone that pays attention to what I'm saying has tremendous value. Therefore, if you go on a date with that woman that you swipe to match with tonight, and you sit there for an hour listening to her life, not getting caught up with, I'm going to listen so maybe she'll like it. No, just really empty space, wonder, curiosity. Who is this person? She might never have experienced something like that in her life, ever. Right? And the same with your, I don't know, your little brother, your grandfather, to sit and listen to them with that sense of rapt wonder, curiosity. I've had family members turn around and be like, bloody hell, Jordan, no one has ever sat and listened to me in the way that you have for 20, 30 years. So the healing power of presence, of attention, of this is what we all have in the depth of the masculine, this is what we are.
Presence, like emptiness, pure emptiness, unwavering attention, detachment to the outcome not in a more logical sense. It's just you are alive and you are dead. You are here. You are there. You are like an expansive space where nothing deters you. You are there, but at the same time, you're also connected to the heart space, because if I'm giving you attention, sometimes people see, why is this person staring at me, right? And I think that's the sense of tension comes in because the other person sometimes might be not able to feel you. So, it comes into the concept of yoga and beauty and how connected are we to our own bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a beautiful sort of idea to immerse yourself in and keep it in your stack of tools in a man's journey. So for me, it has been, after our work together, I have been to, studied under different teachers, and when I see this man, even up in the mountain, at the end of the session, and I think you had a one-on-one with everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and I could see that in your presence as well, like listening. And when you see another brother or a teacher, listen to you, and a deep, shared, loving presence, it just, it's really healing for any human being. It's beautiful, and you want to, and it sort of transmutes to the next person. You sort of cultivate the idea that this is a possibility to another human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You pass it along. That's the idea of legacy. I listen to you, you listen to the next, and he listens to the next, and bit by bit, it's an initiation, to really go into the Vision Quest language, to show that it's possible to listen in such a deep way. You initiate one man, he initiates the next, and so on, and good things get passed around the society. But it's going back to another point you made earlier on. It's very difficult to listen in this way if you're caught up with something, right? Like you mentioned shame and guilt and kind of cultural conservative conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I can't listen in this way. Oh no, if I look at this person in the eyes for too long, he's going to think I'm weird. I better make myself look away or grab my own phone. Or I remember for a long period in school, I had good grades, but then I realized that actually the cool kids didn't get good grades, and they didn't give a fuck either. So in order for me to be one of the cool kids, I had to learn ways to dumb myself down socially, right? So whatever my light was, I would dim that intelligence or dim that listening or that awareness to try and fit in, get social goodness. So we learn many, many different ways of not being present, for sure. And I think you mentioned a word to me the other day, which is healing. A lot of men don't consider the notion of healing. I know you have, and I know that there are circles and communities where healing is a big word. A lot of men don't think that. A lot of men think, yep, mastery, self-improvement, for sure, I'll go in that direction. But why can't we hold this quality of presence as a gift for others, but also as a way of living for ourselves? Where if there are aspects of us that have carry hurt or pain or trauma, then we protect ourselves with the various habits that distract us from listening, from beauty, from pure awareness.
And the way that the timeline of experience of our own lives is progressing, is just there are more stimuli and variables coming in trying to steal our attention. And there's this app, that person, this event, that event, and we don't have the time or the courage to be alone. When we are alone, we are not able to, the feelings that comes up, we are strangers to it, and we shy away. We fear. We don't, as you said, don't know how to process. And then that's why I think vision quests are a really powerful tool to sort of find out who you truly are or what your purpose is. And that's how, the older, our ancestors were initiated into. So tell me about your experience, the quest.
I think the initiation really is. We live, and it's been said many times, we live in an epidemic of loneliness. And one of the things I hear again and again is it's not the surface thing that men come and ask about or talk about, but a little down the line they'll say, actually, yeah, I feel lonely. And my motivation for finding this or doing that or improving in this is because I want to avoid this feeling of loneliness. Which is crazy, right? And especially in the big city, you would imagine that there is the possibility to really connect, and very few people have that experience. And so there's a feeling of being lonely, and then what we tend to do next is judge the fact that we are lonely. Why am I lonely? I must be a loser. I must not have my tribe, or, I can't communicate myself or connect with other people. So there becomes a sense of I feel lonely, and not only that, but I criticize myself for being lonely, and now I have to do a whole bunch of work in order to become good enough somehow to not feel this loneliness anymore. So you see how one feeling of loneliness that gets rejected in the mind ends up becoming this great source for trying to change things. But actually, if you get to the root and the feeling of loneliness, what if you ask yourself, what if this is not a problem? What if you can feel loneliness and allow it just to be exactly the way it is without any need to change it? I feel lonely. I mean, that's a brutal challenge, actually, and I can feel that now, like to sit and feel lonely and then have to bake in, as if I'm sat in an oven, stewing and baking in these feelings of feeling like a loser, feeling not good enough, and so on, and having all these memories surface. And it's very hard to sit in this kind of feeling, but if you sit there long enough, a lot of the suffering kind of evaporates, and you're left with the raw feeling. I experienced this in the Vision Quest, as you're asking about. I also did a darkness 7 day, 7 night, just in the dark retreat, solitude. You can't even see your hand in front of your face, right? So you sit there with your own mind and your own body and your own emotional system. I'm lonely. And after a while, that sense of I feel lonely, I'm not getting any needs met, I'm not getting any validation, I'm sitting in all of my mental stuff, it starts to transform into this sense of aloneness, which from the outside looks like the same thing. You're sat there alone. I'm feeling aloneness. But it's very different in texture to loneliness. It's in loneliness there's this cry from the heart that I wish it were different. But to be radically alone is very, very interesting, right? Pretty much all meditation is done alone. Monastery life is done alone. The Vision Quest is done alone. The bravest retreat, solo travel, is done solo. You sit there in your aloneness. Who are you when you're alone? Well, once you allow all these different kind of rejections of aloneness to go away, and you find yourself in the midst of this, you're sat in the source of your own power, radically. Because no one is interfering. You've got nowhere to go. Maybe no one you need to be. And you sit in that, and people think loneliness is a bad thing, and they want to change it, but people in our culture tend to think to know oneself, to know thyself is a great thing, to become wise. Well, how do you know thyself? Well, you have to practice not being around other people that are imposing, and you're channeling old conditioned ways of being in order to meet those relationships. Aloneness is one of the best things, and a lot of people ask me about my life with travel, right? I spent almost 20 years on the road, a lot of that time alone, and not all of those days or months or even years were fun, to put it bluntly, right? We think that traveling should be fun, like the Hangover movie, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, traveling a great adventure. Yeah, but half of that adventure is you're going to be on your own. Okay, and then you sit there in some cheap hotel on the other side of the world where you can't really interact with local people anyway because of the language barrier. You don't have any friends for the night. There's no out. There's no beer you can go and drink in the Irish bar. You are alone. And you face all of that, and knowing thyself happens as a consequence of that. And it feels like a ripening. It feels very austere. And yet from that, the flower opens, right? That sense of the lotus flower, I think, in the heart opens. And a lot of people ask me about the beginning of my relationship. I'm 5.5 years now in a beautiful relationship. And for many years before that, I was floating around the world, like really enjoying the world of women, but very non-committal. And people ask, how did you make that change? Well, what happened with me was I sat in my feeling of aloneness for a period of time, and started to say no, started to prefer the uncertainness of my own company, and bit by bit that sense of feeling life as beautiful all around me started to open up. Yeah. So this is the Vision Quest is 4 days, 4 nights, right? And you get a hyper concentrated version of this just in a matter of days. But also I think someone's soul journey or a person's spiritual journey, which you might keep your job in Manhattan over the period of 10 years, but there's almost like this underground double life that happens evenings, weekends, of a soul ripening. It can happen in secret from the rest of your family and your friendships, and over a period of time, like this aspect of you can open up. Yeah, it's not maybe a quick fix. Happy ending for the but this is what it means to deepen and ripen and mature. And I think we clearly live in times where society I think is absolutely not mature and unable to handle itself. It's full of outrage and outbursts. It's full of infighting. People haven't taken this kind of spiritual time to find their own maturity. And in the past, I think this was, to some extent, provided to us by the great religions in many ways. Maybe not completely, but there were versions that took a person a long way. But it's a mysterious conversation. What is the journey of ripening one's soul so that you feel absolutely at home in your mind, in your body, on the earth, doing your work in relationship to other people? You don't tend to get that for free when you're 18 or 21, finishing college. But inside, I think it's anyone with a contemplative aspect to them knows that this is the direction they need to go for themselves.
Absolutely. It's all about, for me, it's been remembering how to know that my attention is not directed in the right place, or I am not aware of attention itself. Remembering remembering death, remembering, the time I have left, maybe remembering my purpose, because when you get rid of all this, shackles that are sort of drained to things that does not serve your purpose, then you can channel the most powerful resource we have, the tool attention, to things that matter, and from there you can embody your power state, and there's a sense of freedom, and from the freedom you can create, you can cultivate, you can be who you want to be. So it has been a pleasure talking to you, brother. I've learned a lot, and thank you for sharing your deep work. If any of the listeners would like to get in touch with your work, what is the best way or you have any final thoughts from our talk?
Final thoughts, I don't know. This went by so much more quickly than I imagine, that's for sure. And yeah, I think we went into the depths. I think we're way off the conventional map of the conversation that we're having. But that's where it has to go for me. And you mentioned death. When I remember death, this is something that re-enlivens me, or has me come back to the essence, or brings the great value of my attention, concentrates it again and brings it back. And one thing that we're traveling at the moment, obviously, right? I live in Indonesia at present, and we're traveling through the States. One thing that I've started every meeting, every workshop with is, let's be honest, guys, probably we're never going to gather together as this group, as this constellation ever again. We're here today, probably never again. And if we say, yeah, we're going to, everyone from this workshop, everyone from this weekend, we're all going to get together in the same time, the same place in a year's time, these things very rarely happen, right? So let's not kid ourselves with outs. This might be it. And I say to my girlfriend all the time, she doesn't probably like me reminding her, but like, what if this is the last time that we come to San Francisco together, that we come to Los Angeles together? What if it is? So we have to live it for today. And that's beautiful. And on the other topic of traveling, I've been watching this YouTuber who says, I only wear one t-shirt and I have 21 versions of the same t-shirt. So when I pack my bag for traveling, so it's very, very simple. He just has one thing. So there's something about minimalism and being of the essence. So I'll wrap up with that. But your question, where can people find me? Jordan Luke Collier is my name. So I have a YouTube channel. People can come and find me here on YouTube, subscribe. I also write a Substack. So Jordan Luke Collier, Substack.com is a place to get acquainted with my work. And then, as you mentioned earlier, I have a long time affiliation with the Ars Amorata. So Ars Amorata, or spell it out in the show notes. And that's where you can find both my work and the work of Zan and a few other speakers and coaches that are all aligned around this message that we shared today.
Wow. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, soaking all the information. And yeah, I hope to continue this sometimes in the future and contemplate on the very ideas, because I think this is a never-ending topic and we can branch off in many different ways. So it's been a pleasure, Jordan, and hope you have a wonderful stay here in New York City.
Thank you, Shane.
Yeah, until next time.
Yeah, we'll go and get our breakfast now. All right.
Thank you.
Beautiful.